I'm so curious about how you're honing your craft, how you think about honing your craft. So
Mhm.
on the Dawn Wall documentary, just like many movies, there's kind of they compress like 4 years into like 2 minutes of film, and it's like it reminds me of kind of like the Rocky montage in Rocky Four, where it's just like, okay, boom, 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 now things have progressed. And I just know that that's where most of the good stuff happens in life, and that's where most of this idea that you were talking about at the top, moving from belief to confidence, like it's in that 4 years that's compressed into 2 minutes. And I
Yeah.
often think about this from uh, when you're reading the press around entrepreneurship, everybody seems like an overnight success, but it's a lot of grinding in
Mm.
obscurity. And so I guess I'm curious
Totally.
about what there's a term in the startup world where it's called the Trough of Sorrow. You go from this like excitement of the project, like, oh my gosh, it's really interesting, all right, this could be cool, oh, we might do something really new and interesting and novel, and then you're putting in the work and nobody else is caring or looking at you at all anymore, and you're just grinding away in obscurity. And so I am curious about how you guys dealt with that, or if there is a corollary Trough of Sorrow on the wall, and how you deal with it.
Man, it really needs some rebranding on that whole Trough of Sorrow thing. That is super depressing.
It's kind of
Um,
depressing.
yeah, that really needs to be reworked. I was trying to, what could that, I don't know what that could be, but I get what they're referring to as far as like the period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because we obviously spent so much time in obscurity, just with our heads down doing the work.
Yep.
But it was far from like a Trough of Sorrow
Mm-hmm.
experience. Um, for us, we tried to really deliberately write our memories at the end of each day. So what
Oh,
I
really?
mean by that is that, okay, so we just spent all day toiling away on pitch 14, getting our asses kicked. Fingers are all bloody. Maybe we made a little bit of progress that day compared to last week.
Or maybe
And
not.
then or maybe not. And then we clip our blade devices on the rope and we, in 10 minutes can zip back down to the ground. When our feet hit the ground and we unclipped that blazing hot blade device and, took our harnesses off and took our helmet off and put the headlamp on and started our hike down, the memory of the day didn't end as soon as we took our harness off. In a lot of ways, like the most important part was the time we spent together from when our feet hit the ground to when we got back to the meadow, El Cap Meadow. Because on that hike down, that's when we would really talk through like everything that actually went well that day, all of the good parts, so that despite all of the struggle, we were trying our best to like deliberately put a punctuation point on like whatever little bit of progress was made, even if it was so small that day.
And are you focusing on like moments of gratitude there, like things that you were grateful that went well only? Are you focusing on things that sucked? Or are you doing both?
Both. Yeah, both.
Yep.
You got to appreciate both, but especially like taking time to recognize success in the micro, that is so important, because from the macro, every year the climbing community is watching us go back, and the question is always just like, well, have they done it yet? Yes or no?
And
right?
Were you feeling that?
A little bit. Yeah, like, man, you guys going back again? So in the macro, the answer to the question is always like pretty simple, like they still haven't done it, But in the micro, if when you're the one in the trenches, macro doesn't really matter. Success in the macro doesn't matter. Success in the micro is what matters. That day-to-day pulse of, are you making progress or not? Are you learning or not? That's what matters. The rest is noise, and will take care of itself. And then season after season, pitches that once felt impossible now felt casual, and the number of question marks that we had to solve for started to really come down to just like, 5 sequences of moves at the end of this pitch, or just the dyno, and all these other pieces. Those questions were answered, and they're still hard, but there wasn't a mystery wrapped up in the whole climb the way that there was at the beginning. And I think it was because we focused on the micro, that, success in the micro, not just the macro, that allowed us to enjoy that trough of sorrow. We still got to come up. We got to like.
We'll put our heads together. We'll come up with something better.
Yeah.
There's a 30-second scene in another kind of short doc on a climb that you did in called Blood on the Crack. Where were you? You were in Canada, yeah?
Yeah, we were in the Bugaboos.
In the Bugaboos, yeah.
Yeah.
Looked amazing. You and your climbing partner there were playing charades around like what the sequence of moves were. You would do one of you would do a sequence, and the other one would have to guess which pitch and which section of whatever pitch. And it just struck me that's the micro. Like that is so micro, and I it was so nerdy, and so I guess I'm just curious, like what's happening, what's going on there.
So that particular pitch is the hardest pitch on that climb, and it's basically like a 3/4 inch laser split up a gently overhanging granite wall. I mean, it's just made to climb.
Yeah.
But it all kind of looks the same, but when you zoom in, there's only certain ways that your fingers fit into the cracks, and only certain places that gear really fits to put in to protect. And certain openings will, be much better suited for your hand to fit this way or to fit that way. And this whole sequence has to be discovered for yourself in order to commit it to memory and to start to create some flow and some muscle memory. So you know where you are, how many moves before you get to the next rest, where the gear goes, in what order the gear goes, all of this stuff, so that you can generate a sense of flow. And so, that game, and that could all be really hard to remember while you're climbing. Oh, what? I see the next opening in the crack. Do I go thumb up or thumb down? What piece of gear goes next? And then as soon as you start fumbling on terrain that hard, you're off. It has to be perfect, at least for us. So that was just a fun game to pass the time during. I think it was raining for a couple days straight, and we were just bored.
Oh, gosh.
But it was a way of like committing to memory, like, oh yeah, at this part you go here, and it's the yellow Camelot goes here and the red one goes there, and but climbing gets super nerdy.